All right, Leo, beautiful. They're beautiful cards. So, who in the world are you? Getting to know the new you and then stepping into a new life. Now, I do feel like for some of you, this is needed. So, who in the world are you? This is about a fascination with getting to know yourself again and growing into a new self. It also talks about defying assumptions about who you are. It's really about exploring who you believe yourself to be, but it's all in order for you to step into this new life. Now, new life says that this is one of those times in your life when new ideas inspire you and new opportunities bring you hope for seeing your dreams come true. So, and this is where I feel like for some of you, this is needed. So, stepping into a new life where you get to see the things that you're wanting to create. All right, Leo, here is your overall judgment. Damn, man. All right, so with judgment being the overall here, we're talking about you needing to review something from the past, but needing to, kind of lay it to rest. It is what it is. Now, for some of you, absolutely, this could be about something that is coming back up that you're going to have to take a look at. Because with judgment, I always see the review, right? But the only judgment we ever face is our own. But it is going to be about, looking at the past, being okay with it and moving on and like needing to kind of close that out, but like I said, for some of you, it's going to be about something coming back up. Okay. And there you go. So with the Ten of Swords in the past, we're talking about a situation that has ended in a very painful way for you, right? The difficult ending here. But with judgment being the overall, this is you needing to kind of see it for what it is, and it's not necessarily that this is something that you want to like bring back up or that you want brought back up, but for some reason you're going back and looking at it, and it could be because of an issue going on or a person that is bringing this up. But I do like the fact that judgment is the overall, with that being the past. Okay, so in the present, the Nine of Wands. Now, what I would say here is that if you're going to accurately assess a difficult situation that you've been through, you're going to have to open up. With the Nine of Wands, you're talking about you've been put through a lot, obviously, here with the Ten of Swords. But it's also like building up the wall around you and not wanting to let anything in. Now, for some of you, you may be in this position now because of what you've experienced. If a situation has ended in a very difficult way, it would make sense that, you're very cautious about what you choose to let in, needing to protect yourself now. But with judgment, I look at that and I think you don't need to do this to yourself anymore. Future conditions, the King of Pentacles. So, for some of you, yeah, you're going to be dealing with a person here in future conditions, male, female, earth sign. My God, if I could talk right, it doesn't matter to me. But I look at this as, what somebody is projecting outward. With the King of Pentacles, you're talking about somebody who is very giving of their time and their resources. Now, for some of you, it's something that you don't want to deal with, and you're more focused on your success, your career. But then again, for some of you, it's going to be about a person who may be coming through that is kind of like forcing you to look at issues from the past. And I have to see what's coming out here, before I pass any kind of harsh judgment myself on this King of Pentacles. But in terms of you and what you're projecting out, it's like, look, I don't want to deal with that. That's over and done with. But yet you're having to look at it. And at the same time, there's a need to kind of focus on, your own success. Your best path to follow, the Hermit. This is basically saying in order for you to, see everything that needs to be seen based on, what you have been through in the past, you're going to have to kind of like step away and go inward. And it's not that you need to be in isolation here, but you're going to have to give yourself some time to do the soul searching and getting to know yourself. And that's basically that. But I feel like for a lot of you, the reason why this is happening is because you can't step into that new life if there are things about a difficult ending in the past that you're still carrying with you and not necessarily, dealing with. Or like, I don't have time. Like, I feel like I don't have time to kind of deal with this right now. I don't really want this to come back up, but you're going to have to face it and deal with it, And that may mean with the Hermit, like I said, you're going to have to like step back and take a time out for yourself, But like I understand why this is not something you want to kind of go back and look at. It is what it is. It's over with. But, it kind of needs to be dealt with in a final way almost. And your environment, the Two of Wands. Okay. So if we're talking about with the Two of Wands here, you needing to kind of like make a choice on a course of action, before you can do that, you're going to have to, clear up things that may have ended really painfully in the past. Now, absolutely, for some of you, this could have to do with a career, and it could have to do with a career option that didn't exactly go very well in the past. But with the Nine of Wands, there may be some things, it almost has like a Four of Pentacles type of feel to it, where like there are some things that you're kind of hanging on to. But, if you're looking at, taking a course of action where you've already been down that road, it makes sense that you're kind of like, wanting to protect yourself this time, But I do feel like there is a choice that is in front of you, and you're going to have to decide what course of action you're going to take. It could have to do with career. It could have to do with a relationship, but whatever happened in the past needs to be kind of over and done with, and it's not that, like, I don't feel like there's a need to see things from another person's perspective. I think that for you, it was what it was, But I kind of feel like there are some things that you may have missed. And instead of seeing that, there's like more focus on the fact that something ended in a painful way, right? Especially if you were feeling like you were betrayed, because that does show up sometimes with the Ten of Swords. But you're going to have to start, thinking about where you're going to go or what you're going to act on here, Your hopes and your fears, the Hierophant. Okay, so now absolutely, if we're talking about work, this is going to be about, fearing being locked into something and then having it end up the same way, right? But I feel like things have changed in terms of that. Now, if we're talking about a relationship and with a person here, the Hierophant would suggest that, you're looking at that commitment, right? I don't necessarily feel like this is about, whether or not you can make your own personal commitment here. I think that a lot of you are hoping for something traditional. I don't think that it has to do with conformity here. But, the hope is that, things are going to start working out in a way that are like normal almost. Especially if there's a choice being presented to you to, let go of the past and get involved with a person again. And it may be that they're coming through and wanting to be more giving, being a little bit more practical and a little bit more reasonable, where that may not have been the case in the past. But I still feel like there are things that you're going to have to kind of look at, because if we're talking about you getting to know yourself again, is this a part of your new life? Absolutely, you could take this road. You could get involved with a person or a career opportunity where things didn't go so well, or it's done and it's over with and you can move on to, a new life for yourself. It all depends on how you feel coming out of hermit mode here. But definitely some of you are needing to take a big step back here so that you can accurately see the experience so that it's over and done with. but I look at the Hierophant and I also feel like this is you, being a little bit more grounded, like hoping that, this is not like a lesson that you need to continue to learn, but I also feel like, there's hopes and fears surrounding, the major commitment, right? And then coming out the Three of Wands. So what is it that you act on though? Because I'm looking at that and I'm going, okay, great. So in future conditions, we're talking about, you've taken action here. It was in your environment. You chose a path. You acted toward it. Now you're waiting to see how things are going to develop. But did that involve a person or a career, right? And then the Two of Cups, yeah. So it is going to be about a relationship with another person. But, with the Two of Cups, like we always say, it could be romantic, it could be business, it could be family, friends, whatever. But it's going to be about two people who are making the choice to see things from the same perspective, Now, with the Wheel of Fortune and looking at the Ten of Swords, I mean, this is definitely like feeling like fate did not work in your favor here. But it's also about you looking at, the long term here and worrying about the repeating cycle, and the same thing kind of happening again here. But it's also more about, you feeling a little bit more in control, I feel like, in terms of something coming back around, but, things going in a better direction. Now, with the Page of Cups, the reason why a lot of this is coming back up here is because there are new emotions that are being communicated or felt. With the Page of Cups, we're talking about, again, naive energy, young energy, but it's also about emotions that you have not felt before. So there are new feelings that are happening here, and something is being brought back up in a way where you feel like, this is like a viable option. There is a course of action that you can take. The problem is with the Nine of Wands, there are things that you're still feeling like you need to, guard yourself from, like you need to protect yourself, especially with the Ten of Swords being there. But then again, right, with the Two of Cups, and then you've got the King of Pentacles here. This is you laying the past to rest, looking at the long term, dealing with somebody who I feel like is more willing to give of themselves. But this could also be about a new person coming through for some of you, but it's you needing to kind of lay whatever you've been through in the past to rest, so to speak. Because you may be missing something, right? Like I see all of this as a really good thing coming out for a lot of you. But you're going to have to, make the choice here to step into that new life, The past is what it is, and again, it has nothing to do with, what is going to happen in the future for you. Now, for some of you, if you are in a relationship, this is about getting back to a place where, we're not guarding ourselves against the difficulties of the past. We're taking a look at it, but we're also okay with the fact that that is the past. It doesn't need to be brought back up anymore. But, I look at the Hermit though, and I feel like for a lot of you, this is going to be about choosing a completely new life. And again, new life, right? The deeper soul searching. Interesting. But I like it. I like the feeling coming out of this. With the root chakra, and then believe, right? Believe that your future holds everything that you want it to, looking at the Three of Wands coming out, that the action that you take is going to be the right course of action, that you're going to see the things that you want coming toward you, but definitely there's a need to tap into, wisdom and understanding that the past is what it is. Get better grounded here and believe. I like it. I think it looks great. And then miracles. Expect the wonders to emerge. Very nice. So once you come from a place of gratitude, then you will start to see things happen in a miraculous way, right? And I like it. It looks really great. Gratitude is so important, right? Being grateful for the past experiences, good and bad. Grateful for what you have learned through that, and the wisdom that you have gained, but also being grateful for the fact that, your future is wide open here, and for a lot of you, this looks like a good connection, with the Two of Cups. You know, it's just that whatever happened in the past does not have a part in what happens in the future. And that doesn't go for just you, but with the other person as well. You know, but like I said, with the King of Pentacles, you know, again, whether you're dealing with male or female, it looks like this is somebody who is being a little bit more realistic and a little bit more willing to give of themselves this time.